for the developers that are just getting into the space, or even, let's say, I know a lot of managers right now are just trying to learn how to code too, just so they can up their game. You're gonna break stuff all the time. It's That's kind of the point.
Hello, everyone. If this is your first time tuning in on Experimentation, my name is Charlotte, your podcast host. And I have a very special guest with a very, very interesting story with his experimentation experience. His name is Eddie. And Eddie, how are you doing today?
I'm pretty good, pretty good. How are you doing
Doing
yourself?
well. Yeah, I'm doing well. So, like I'm thinking like what's a better way to introduce but to introduce yourself and I'll let you take on from here and we can start the conversation. What do you think?
Sure, yeah. I'm Eddie Aguilar. I've been a developer since I would say about 15 years old. I really started
So interesting.
developing programs for games, actually.
So during the
Um,
dial-up periods and you can hear the sound and all that.
yeah, it it was I started developing brackets,
Wow.
basically like tournament brackets for gaming, and then
Oh, wow.
eventually made my way into just the esports scene, for StarCraft specifically. And that was like heavily based on just, optimizing your gameplay. Um, for some time, I really felt like there wasn't good experiences out there that just kind of was user centric. I really felt like there was a lack of that, and that's what really made me shift more into the optimization space, was because I wanted to start being able to introduce some of the technicalities that come from, like, all the code that you use, and making it so it's easier for people that are doing marketing to be able to, like, combine the two, right? So marketing technology right now is huge. When I worked with FundoMV, or rejoined FundoMV, it was around 2017 or so, or 2018. We're building personalization tools, like, and I was basically helping our A/B testing clients leverage our personalization engine. So I rejoined as a solutions engineer, and one of
Mm,
my clients was InVision app. They were an awesome client. It was a great opportunity to work with them and learn with
mm.
them. I
Yes.
ran into issues.
Like what happened? It's very interesting.
Yeah, so InVision app itself is it's like a prototyping tool. It helps you and your company be able to, like, a upload designs, get feedback on the designs across the board. There's also a version where you can do like live editing, kind of like Mural.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, so they definitely had like a little mural feature before mural came around, but they essentially their main focus was prototyping back then,
Mm, mm.
and getting companies to be able to, like, leverage designers to build prototypes.
Yeah, and
Um,
collaborate as well. They can do like
yeah,
live edits and all that. What were you trying to do then? So you have what's the KPI that you were trying to achieve?
yeah. So essentially, I we were looking to optimize revenue and LTV. Those were like our primary KPI for, and what we were trying to do was serve up, basically upsells,
Encourage
service.
people to upgrade and yeah.
Yeah. And what we were doing was essentially switching like how the pricing modules worked based on like the current plan that you were on. And it was on the main website, so nothing like within the product itself. We were grabbing some information from the product side and then leveraging that on, the client side and showcasing the difference to the users, just like, based on their tiers. I would say essentially, you start developing these things, and as any developer, you're working with client code, you're working with a client website,
Yep.
and they're all different. You're always learning
Oh,
something different.
exactly. They're all different, and some of them complicated than others.
Yeah. And essentially, you also learn as a developer, certain things to just build or bake into your process, right? Before you start actually developing at this point.
Mm,
Um, but I was a little comfortable with how like session storages and local storages work
yep.
and whatnot. Um, I had defined the value in what's called Project JavaScript in Optimizely. And what Project JavaScript is, it just lets you put JavaScript globally on the website.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, so I mean, you can definitely cause a lot of issues with that
Yep.
if you're not careful, right?
Mm, mm,
Um, but because I was mainly just trying to create and grab some session storages, like just information that really the client doesn't see. uh it wasn't anything that I thought too much about, where I was going to need to like
double
catch
check.
my.
Yeah.
So in JavaScript, we have a thing called these catches where you can catch errors,
Mm,
and you can essentially like either do nothing with the errors, so it just looks like nothing is broken.
yep. And it's
And I've
fine. Yeah.
that I mean honestly, it's not fine. That
Oh,
part is not fine.
no.
I've had I've had projects where I've gone crazy looking for errors or something, but what they had done was they catched the error and like did nothing with the error. So like they didn't post it to the console. They just did nothing to it.
Mm.
So um but that's another topic. But essentially, you know, I wasn't leveraging this at the time because I was, like I said, just using code that was like on the client side,
Yeah.
and that they just really don't see or leverage. Um, but I did not know that InVision app had some form of internal console logging,
Oh,
so they were
no.
able to see like all the like they were able to see the error. Um, at one point, I decided to just save the project JavaScript, and it launched completely globally to
Oh,
across
oh.
InVision app.
Yeah.
Um, if the value obviously didn't exist, it was going to return that there was an error, and that's what exactly happened. It just started console log. Well, it started erroring out for every user that was on InVision app. It basically sent InVision apps error logging like through the roof.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
like
can imagine.
it was just like an immediate reaction after I recall it was like 10 minutes later after me pressing that save button, where I had the marketing manager of Envision app just,
Call you like.
yeah, they're sending me a message and they're like, "Hey, I don't know what is going on, but they're saying something is, firing an error on the app, and it's causing like our error logs to spike, which they were charged per like, log that happened.
Oh, crap. Okay.
So yeah, so the pricing of that at the moment was a very expensive cost.
Mm,
Um, I'm sure they were able to, work it out in
yeah.
regards to that. But
At least they picked it up 10 minutes after. I'm not saying that it's a good thing, but there are sometimes like issues or errors that would be like hours, and you're like, oh, it's not working. And it's been like 3 hours, 4 hours. At least they were able to pick it up for 10 minutes.
yeah, I would say I would hope after 10 minutes, especially. I'm certain right now they're over like 10 million users or something. They were in the
Wow.
millions back then. I'm sure now they're way over that. And I'm sure, error logging that many users at the same time was just pretty bad for InVision that
True.
security team or dev team.
Mm,
Um, but essentially, I reverted what I did. We
yeah.
went back to the drawing board, kind of discussed it out with their team, like steps moving forward. Set up some process in
Yeah.
place, just
Yeah.
so that way we're not just injecting JavaScript across the website.
Yeah, but the thing is that
um,
sometimes these things happen, and sometimes, like the best, I think like I think I would speak to a lot of optimizers here where we've tried to QA and went live on production. It didn't go well as we've planned it out, but that kind of like brings up opportunities for improvement. Like processes in place, like you mentioned, and more conversation, more collaboration with the company to prevent this in the future. So yeah, it's interesting. Oh yeah, what happened after that though? So you've had that conversation. What happened?
yeah, so they do these follow-ups, to these errors, right? And just basically, what I did in the project JavaScript, essentially just making sure that if we're going to do any changes that just affect the global website, it's gonna be like ticketed, just so that way it's not just like marketing is aware that we're making those changes. It's also the development teams that are involved.
Yeah, so that was a very interesting, experience, Eddie. I think like you were telling me how complicated this test was, and that you're trying to get data points from different users at the same time, just to understand what plan they're in, so that you can run the test specifically for that user, dependent again on the plan that they have, which is very, very complicated and very interesting.
Yeah, and we were touching multiple points of the website, so it was like the home page, then
Mm,
the plans page, and
yeah,
then if you got into like the actual checkout and booking flow, we were also making sure that whatever
yeah,
upgraded plans you saw there were also being updated. So it
yeah.
was, it was a global change and it was a global test to across the website. So I needed to leverage Project JavaScript at that point
Mm,
to, make sure that I can just be consistent with the data that the user is seeing in regard the just the information and
yeah. That the data
I,
is relevant to that specific user. Yeah.
yeah, so it definitely it's definitely was a lot trickier, and
Mm,
obviously I worked with the InVision app security team and the error team and the development teams, just to have process in place that's able to like uh, this if I make a change globally on the website, they'll know just aside from making.
how long did it take? So after pausing that test, let's say, or removing the project JavaScript, how long did it take for you to run the test again? Like, did it take a few weeks back on the drawing board, or
I would say a week. just it we went it turned we turned it around again in a week.
Yeah, and then let me know like what are the results because I think the results are incredible.
Yeah, so it was 227% revenue lift,
Oh wow,
and then
massive.
it was like 70% LTV lift. Um, just, making sure that you kept your upgrade copy and your upgrade pricing consistent with the user and their intentions, right?
Mm, mm,
Huge lift. And we were able to showcase that lift. So,
amazing. Are they still using it in Vision apps or
uh, I'm
have they evolved it? That
I'm
test.
I'm pretty sure it's evolved.
Yeah.
The marketing manager there, she was very intelligent.
Mm,
And I'm sure it's evolved to
yeah.
something much greater than what we already did and accomplished. And like I said, this was back in, like, 2018 or
Oh,
so.
it's been a while.
So it's definitely evolved. It's might have, you never know. Sometime in digital landscapes, things go full circle, I
I
feel
agree.
sometimes.
Yeah.
So you never know. They might just be showing the old pricing again.
Let me just go back to their web. Just kidding. So that's a crazy experience because I'm pretty sure like a lot of CRO especially like would be like, oh yeah, that happened to me too. What are the takeaways? Like what would be the advice that you'll give? Because in all honesty, not a lot of I wouldn't say because you're a programmer turned CRO, you know, and not a lot of CRO specialists have programming background, but they're probably great project managers. But what would be your takeaway from this, and what would be your, advice from us human beings who are not God level like you?
No, uh, I would say it's communication in
Mm,
these issues. Being able to develop your skill set in communicating these issues with not just like the managers you work with, but
mm,
possibly, VPs, C suites.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, I mean, that's the biggest takeaway I got out of this.
Mm,
I, you know, before this it was uh, InVision app, they still loved me as the developer. It wasn't like anything that I messed up. It's a huge learning, right?
yeah.
Um
Mm,
the test itself proved valuable for
yeah.
them. Even if I may have cost them a little bit in error logging, it was
The return of investment is still good.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was interesting time and Envision app definitely was one of my best clients to work with.
Wow.
Like I said, the marketing manager and we still talk to this day. She's currently she's at Cloudflare. She's a project manager there.
Yeah.
If you're
Wow.
ever interested, Emily Flannery. I hope she's okay with me mentioning her name, but
Hello, Emily. Sorry again about the. What, yeah, it's all good though. That is such an amazing, experience, amazing learning, and amazing, hearing about what you've been through, like that huge Envision app experience, and then the thing is that you're able to turn it around anyway within a week, and such an amazing result. I probably have one question that I just, were thinking about. Like, would you think it's an, because I myself, like, I have an idea on HTML, CSS, JavaScript. I understand, the session storage, like adding values in there and stuff. But would you think that as a CRO specialist or CRO managers, um, what do you think about them going into that space and trying to understand or having that knowledge about CSS and JavaScript and all that? Like, would that be an invaluable knowledge that you probably would want to know in addition to your CRO knowledge? If not, then why not? So
Yeah, I would say it's valuable. And I'll say it's valuable because imagine your small CRO team, and
yeah.
you know,
Mm,
if your developer's overwhelmed, you can definitely jump in and help him.
mm,
And I think that's a big takeaway is that, sometimes developers do get overwhelmed. They're stressed
yeah.
about a specific test they can't figure out,
Mm,
or, you know, it's it's always a learning. And I think, understanding at least some of the technicality of it, can help develop you as like the manager when you're speaking to clients, or when you're speaking, like I mentioned, to VPs. You're able to speak to it a little more and, like, help your developer,
express
right?
yourself. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And you'd be
It's
able
it's
to, yeah,
it's a team effort,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
So
You'd be able to prioritize things better, know what the limitations are. So, yeah, that's very interesting.
yeah, no, I mean, other than just for the developers that are just getting into the space, or even, let's say, I know a lot of managers right now are just trying to learn how to code too, just so they can up their game. You're gonna break stuff all the time. That's kind of the point. What we're doing, we're breaking things to make it better, in a sense, right? um we currently don't like how the website functions because it's not either converting well, or it's just not user centric. So we test and we move things and we break things of how the current website works, just to see if it does work, if the statistics tells us it works, right? Um, so
Yeah, but yeah, thank you so much, Eddie, for having us, for coming over. I mean, and telling your experience to the experimentation community. But yeah, we're looking forward to having you again in the show and learning more about Zero and your experience.
yeah, yeah, I have many incidents and many
Oh,
resolutions.
yeah. Yeah.
So
Yes. We're wanting more. Thanks, Eddie.
no point. And thank you. Have a good one.
You too. Have a good day, Eddie.